Welcome to the PortlyAI Human Capital Squad Talk podcast, where we have conversations about the changing business landscape and how human capital and other C suite leaders are approaching this. I'm Susan Gans, and I'm your host. The head of the Human Capital Squad at PortlyAI, and I'm a business strategist and outsourced chief of staff with Gans Strategic Solutions. Today, we're in for a treat and get to talk with Angela Finlay. A bit about her. She is the CEO and founder of Windward Human Capital Management, a fractional and interim CHRO practice serving small to mid-sized, scaling and transforming businesses with more than 25 years of HR executive leadership, including senior roles at Dime Community Bank and Mitsui. Angela now helps organizations build the people infrastructure to grow through change. She's also a lecturer at Columbia University's School of Professional Studies and the Masters in Human Capital Management and Information and Knowledge Strategies programs. And if that wasn't enough, she's the author of Skill Stacking, Taking Ownership of Your Career in Changing Times. She's a frequent speaker and podcast guest talking about the changing organizational talent and career landscapes. So, a warm welcome to you, Angela.
Thank you for having me. That sounds like an amazing introduction. I don't know who that person is, jokingly. Sounds nice when you say it. Yes.
Absolutely. So, given the fact that we share this special interest in skills, I'm going to start with a skills question. So, as we're moving to a more project based economy and a skills based workforce, what does this mean for you as a leader and when you're consulting to organizations? How does that skills conversation go?
So it's really an interesting time in general right now, where we have previously been living inside of an organizational structure where we've been focused on job titles and job descriptions and things that really defined how we placed people. It was by your title, it was by your degree, it was by your description of the work you did or the KPIs, the key performance indicators that you had. And now what we're finding is I can't rely on that, right? So, as an example, I have a client right now who's doing what everybody's doing and reviewing where AI fits inside of their organization, right? Anybody that's not doing it is almost behind the eight ball or behind the ball right now. But they're going through and saying, okay, where can I deploy AI to be more efficient? And they're doing it very strategically. So they're not just trying to put it across the board to everybody, but figuring out where it fits in. But as we go through it, we're finding that third of a job's going away, half of a job's going away, right? And then it becomes one of those things where we start to come back and say, well, what do we really need, right? What are those things we really need to help us make sure that we can perform what we need to perform to be successful as a business? And we're also having conversations about, well, not only what do we need, and that goes to skills because the job titles don't exist necessarily, or they're not the way we thought they were, and the job descriptions themselves are changing as we're going through this process. Or we don't even know what the job description will look like in six
Right.
months once we go through it, right? And then on the flip side, we're also having conversations about, do I still need this person in-house? Or could I get part of this by contracting with someone externally, right? So I have a client right now where there are a couple of individuals who they have gone through and said, we don't probably need this position, but we need pieces of it, right? And so maybe there's an opportunity to use them as a fractional or a contract kind of basis. And then that's how we tap into it. And that person can now build a business where they're providing these skills that they have where companies need it, where maybe they don't need it on a full-time basis, but on a part-time basis. And so I say all of that from the standpoint that we're in a skills economy, right? So we can't sit down and think about things as job titles and job descriptions. It is now skills. And it's about how we build portfolio of skills. That is where the value is. So our ability as a human being to understand our own portfolio of skills is certainly key and paramount for our success. I always say like skills are your currency right now in the workplace. It is the thing you need to be able to know what you have, be able to continue to develop, and then be able to create a narrative around it. That's why I wrote the book, because I do truly believe in that. And then on the flip side, skills are the foundation of what we're doing inside of organizations and understanding how we can create our own portfolio of people who are creating or giving us the skills we need to be successful is what we also need to be doing. And so we're at this juxtaposition. Sorry, it's early in the morning. I can't get my words out. Juxtaposition where we're now having to tear apart things that for decades has been how we built our systems. And I'm a CHRO, a chief HR officer, so clearly I lived and breathed job descriptions for 30 years, but know inherently right now that those are no longer relevant from the standpoint of how we use them. And we need to be more agile and flexible. And that's where portfolio type of approaches, skill-based approaches become the most important thing that we can be doing right now as leaders and as ourselves as well.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that because I'd like you to give your perspective on how do you see career pathing going forward, because it's not going to be that step ladder. I want to see if you have a similar view to what I have.
It's not going to be that step ladder, right? I've been using the term lately of career path finding, right? So we're not constantly reinventing our careers. We're not having to start over, which is used to be what we said. If you changed your career, you'd have to start over somewhere else. That doesn't apply because we're still coming with skills, right? You're never starting over. You have this whole bucket of things that you showed up with and experiences that you then redeploy into something else, right? And so we are now in a period of career path finding. So it's a matter of truly understanding who I am, what I bring to the table, what makes me me, right? And this isn't a new concept. We've talked about this for decades about people being able to articulate what's important to them. What I think is new now is that we're saying don't articulate it by job title, don't articulate it by just objectives of things that you've accomplished, but also articulate it by skills. Like, what skills do I have? How have I been able to leverage and demonstrate them? And then, if I take an inventory of my skills, how can I create a narrative that shows who I am as a person, who I am when I show up inside of an organization or inside of a contract role or whatever it may be, that makes me unique and helps me be able to fit into that business and that the objectives they're trying to achieve. The other thing I think is important now as well is that skills are not defined to just what we do inside the workplace, right? So it is not just the stuff I do when I was a CHRO at a bank, right? It is everything else I do, right? It's running a nonprofit organization. It is sitting on the board of my church. It is, I've joked many times about anytime I do anything with my kids, schools, I learn a lesson or two because I am not an expert in children and education and how you corral a bunch of 11-year-old boys, but you learn skills when you have to help with those types of things. We're collecting skills every day, and it's not just inside of our workplace. And that's where it's important for us to start to be looking at skills broader that allow for us to grow. I was talking to someone as I was writing my book. So part of what got me on the journey of writing the book, if you don't mind me going on a little tangent, was,
Yes, please.
I always say I sit in really interesting space where I am a CHRO. and sit inside of all kinds of organizations and see things that are going on and working with clients and strategizing and implementing. And then I sit inside the classroom with students, especially students in the master's programs that I teach in, who are often trying to figure out how to get further along in their career or changing careers. So sometimes what you get in the master's program is I'm kind of pivoting, deciding to go into a new space. And then I have my own kids. I have two teenagers and one up and coming teenager. So I've got three kids who are all about to embark on their own career journey. And a couple of years ago, I was sitting back as I was talking to some of the college students. I was having conversations with my clients and really saying, what does a career look like anymore, right? Like what we keep talking about building L&D programs to make sure that we're growing people inside of our organization. We're talking about promotions and internal mobility and all that. But are we really looking at the right things? And when I see what students are facing today, are we all speaking the same language? And so that the book came out of not because I wanted to be an author. I never thought that was on my bucket list of things that I'd be doing, but I was just curious about what does it really look like, right? And what does this all mean if you start to think about things from a skill perspective instead of job descriptions and all of that? And when I was doing it, I was having interviews with individuals. And there was a gentleman who was talking to me about a pivot he made in his career. And he, interestingly, was in television. He had been kind of a camera person, producer, had gone through the journey on the television side. And then on the outside, he was helping friends build up social media presence, right? As they were building their companies. So he was creating little videos for them that they were posting on YouTube and Instagram and whatever it may be. And as he was doing that, he built this whole portfolio of skills when it came to social media and influencing and things along those lines that he then kind of just quietly pivoted to that when he found that the news world was a little tough to navigate and get a little bit further along, right? That is stuff he was not doing in his day-to-day job, right? It was just stuff where like him and a pal were sitting together on a weekend trying to do videos and figure out what will land and what will get them attention. And we discount the stuff we do on the side that sometimes can be your most valuable skill that we really just need to be more mindful of and figure out how to articulate.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's um, sort of the genesis also of how Portly AI came to be, recognizing that people are more than a task or a metric, as you so beautifully pointed out. They're they come with um, these amazing competencies that is, aren't always easily surfaced. Because if you ask me to list my own skills, I don't think I could come up with the list that purely generates naturally from the data I feed it and some other information out there and assessments and things of that nature. Um, and it's amazing. Like, I'm very intuitive, but uh, where do I put that in a resume? Right?
Well, and that's where, like, it's to me, I think we always struggle to give ourselves credit, right? And we could go into probably all the research around why we tend to shortchange ourselves, and
Yes.
maybe female tend to, I mean, statistically speaking, females especially tend to shortchange themselves. But the same thing happens with men. I've come across many men who are not giving themselves credit, right? And even students, right? Part of what when I got onto this journey of writing a book, again, not my game plan, but it was really how do I help students understand you're not walking into the workplace with nothing. Like, but a lot of them think they are, right? Like, I'm going to graduate, I have nothing to share, right? And so I'd have students, especially when I teach undergrad at a college near my house, and they would come and say, I have an interview for this job. I don't know what to tell them. I don't think I have any experience for it, but I really want it. But, what do I even use as examples? And if you sit down and go, tell me everything you did, right? Just in the last 2 months, walk me through different things you've done, right? And so they worked on this group project that was for a company that the university had contracted with for them to do, right? And built some kind of business plan, or they created a strategy for a school event that they were trying to run, or they executed the school event, or one of them was a restaurant manager, right? And I just look at them and go, you have so many skills. You have to you just have to sit down and think about it, right? Like, what did I do? What did I accomplish? And then how did I get to the point to be able to do that? Right. And so I do think we do, because we shortchange ourselves. Number one, we need to be mindful of it. Like I keep telling people, take a half an hour at the end of the week, say, what was one thing I accomplished this week? And if I sit down and truly think about the ways that I did it, what are the skills I brought to the table? Right. And that's kind of in the book. I tried to create a model just to help you think through it. Right. So I call it the stack model. So it's what are the supportive skills, the foundational things that I needed to be able to execute on it. Right. So if I executed an event for a school activity, right, if I stick with a college student experience, then my ability to do that is my understanding of the student body, my understanding of how I run things inside of a university, right? My understanding of students and what engages students, right? So, kind of those foundational things that I need to know to be able to do it. T is tactical. So, my ability to actually execute project management, right? My ability to have communication and social media and outreach to get people to understand what's going on. Adaptability or adaptive skills are the A, and that is how do I shift and adjust because nothing ever goes perfectly, right? So, what did I do to shift and adjust when there was a challenge? What did I do that helped me move in a certain direction so that I could still get this done and be successful with it? C is what I call complementary skills, which are the ways that I relate with people, right? How did I work with my team members? How did I influence other people? How did I get the school to allow me to do something on campus where probably most of the time that's a challenge to do, right? How did I use emotional intelligence to mediate a situation where maybe there was conflict, whatever it may be, right? And then K is knowledge seeking. Where did I try to learn something new or kind of try to see a different perspective or apply something that maybe is not related to this, but allowed me to start to see patterns or make connections? And so that's often, so whether it's that or a tool or whatever it may be, if we're able to just kind of run through a list and say, that one activity I was successful in because of these different things that I brought to the table, because it's not just my technical knowledge, right? It's all these other things that really become the glue that made me successful. And those things I need to be able to list out. And I do think we're at a time where the people that will be successful in the next decade are the ones who can very clearly articulate their skills. And so being able to start identifying those now, right, through technology or, I joke when I went through the book, I was trying to just use it for myself, and I just opened up a Word document and would just kind of keep listing different skills, right? Like, and I tried to just do it myself and say, okay, could I list my own skills and how would I start to look at it? And it's fascinating because now we have the beauty of AI that I could feed that document into Claude and say, tell me what are my most prominent skills? What are common threads? What are things that I'm missing, right? And to your point, sometimes that technology, however I leverage it, gives me insights that because I'm so close to me, I don't necessarily see, but I need to be able to get something out there to then be able to start to capture the insights and be able to see where my patterns are, where my gaps are, what's my narrative around it, and then be able to take it and then leverage it for whatever I want to do. And inside organizations, we need to figure out how to get people to do that as well, right? Um, I constantly talk about how our technology inside of organizations, and I'm not saying all the technology platforms are bad and all that are sitting inside organizations as HR technology. But a lot of them were built on job titles and job descriptions, right? And built on compensation. And what's happening is for us to dig into the skill side, we need to find a way to change how that is, how it's built, how it's leveraged, what's included in it, right? So all of that has to change so that we see people more holistically than just what position you've had for the last 5 years. And it comes down to more than just checking a couple boxes of what skills I have, but really building me into a much more holistic person. And that was a long tangent on that, but certainly a topic I'm very passionate about.
Yes, and really is very relevant to our conversation here because we are talking about how do leaders need to think differently because how we traditionally approached the workforce and career development and progression and talent acquisition, the whole life cycle, if you will, of an employee and a career are going to look much different going forward. So I think what you're really talking about here is we need a mindset shift. And so just with that, how are you finding when you're working with your clients, how are you getting to reframe? Are they able to reframe? Give us your perspective here.
Um, so I'll start with the last question. Are they able to reframe? Yes, but a little coaxing to reframe, right? Because, and not to say, we all fall into this pattern, right? Like where we're used to thinking about things in a certain way, right? And so it takes a little bit of a challenge to us and sometimes a little bit of a crisis or a little bit of an urgent need for us to kind of step back and be able to say, okay, I need to change how I'm seeing this, right? So I've been approaching a lot of my clients off of generally how I'm seeing things. So I had put out a white paper on kind of what I think is like what we're calling like growing in organizations, right? And there are different things we need to really be focused on, one being kind of the gig-based marketplace, creating talent marketplaces inside of our organization, rewarding managers for skill development, not just achieving KPIs. Clearly, we still need to achieve our key performance indicators or our goals or whatever terminology it is we use. Um, but on the flip side, if I want to be successful as an organization, I need to start rewarding my leaders for development of skills, right? Not that somebody's getting promoted. That's not the indicator. But what have I done to help my talent learn something new or develop a skill further? And that becomes the way we start to change mindset. I have a client right now, and it's a privately owned company. They're about 250 people. And the owner I've been working with as they reconfigure jobs, right? Again, in the age of AI, we're reconfiguring jobs. A lot of what we've been doing is number one, sitting down and just skill mapping. Like, what are the skills I need? What are the skills I'm going to need in a year from now? Most of us can't figure out what we need in 5 years because things are just changing too fast. But at least a year from now, 18 months from now, what skills do I need? And then what do I have? Right. And then really trying to get a handle on what I have. And what I've been working on with him is we're pushing it to the leaders to really start to be the people who start to identify skills and help their own talent understand their own skill set, and then be able to kind of cull that information to figure out how do I reconfigure jobs in a way that leverages the skills I have inside the organization and then obviously matches it to what I need from a business perspective. Part of that is, and again, the mindset shift is we're putting rewards and performance measurements against leaders to be able to do that, right? Whether we like it or not, we live in a world where people respond to compensation targets, people respond to, how they'll get rated on a performance evaluation. And so the mindset shift comes when I change what that goal looks like for you and then of course give you the coaching and the things you need to be able to do that. And they've been very successful. So there are a couple, as they've gone through, I think they are a prime example of a company that has not had to do the like 20% layoffs and all that, right? Because they've been thoughtful and strategic about it to say, I'm not just cutting people to cut people, right? I am looking at what jobs I need, what skills I have, and then it's really a puzzle. How do I put all these pieces back together in a way that makes sense in the new business environment I have? And shockingly, when you dive into it, there are a lot of skills sitting inside their organization that if you just looked at somebody on paper, they would have never known. But that when we start to really dig into it and peel back the layers, you find, I can definitely reconfigure roles in a way where I can tap into a lot of what's already here. And it doesn't need me to go outside and fire 20% of my workplace and then hire 10% back in that are new because I just didn't take the time to figure out what's sitting here and then put my puzzle together.
Yes, and that's what we're finding. The organizations that are successful are the ones that take that time. But we do also come across those who are white knuckling a little bit because it is such a change in orientation. Even at the heart of it, though, are skills and competencies, which have been around since we've been working,
Yeah.
right?
It's so true. And it's one of the things I think if I look over my clients that have been most successful, right? I guess at the end of the day, do we know who's really successful or not? We probably need another couple of years for this whole transformation process to play out. But the ones who have been successful thus far, are the ones who I think lean into understanding I don't have all the answers and mistakes are okay, right? And so I think there's a lot to be said for being willing to understand that we're in a time where we don't know everything, right? And we're in a time to make calculated risks, sometimes fail, and be okay with that, right? And I say that because the ones that are successful, I have leaders and managers, and I have CEOs and owners and founders who say, hey, we may get this right. We may screw up a couple of these things, but we're going to do our best to try and figure out how to make this work, right? And that opens the door for people to be a little bit more vulnerable, people to really show up as more of themselves, for us to be more creative on how we start to align skills and how we put the puzzle together. And I mean, we all know the research around trust and psychological safety in the workplace and all that kind of stuff, but you can see it because the results tend to be better aligned, tend to be a better fit for the organization, and tend to be way more creative than just trying to fit boxes to a round hole, right? And hoping that it'll work. They tend to just be a little bit more open to different ways of looking at it than maybe they would have before.
Absolutely. So, switching gears a little bit, what's something in your background that we might be surprised to learn about or that might be unexpected that has informed your approach to organizational transformation or change management in general?
I am a skill stacker myself, and I wouldn't have known that a couple years ago, except for when I did all the research on the book that I said, "Oh, this is somewhat what I've been living into in my life." So I actually started my career as an accountant. Didn't last very long. I often blow students' minds, especially if they're young students, when I talk about being sat at a desk, no computers, with a big general ledger book and like a calculator that has the paper printing out and having to just, run through pages and pages of financial statements and transactions. And didn't last long, clearly, because I went in a different trajectory. But it's one of those things where that experience has given me, I think, a mindset that made me successful to be a CHRO, right? Understanding the financials, understanding the business, understanding what the CFO is thinking about, right? And the business owner was a stack, right? One part of my own skill stacking that went into it. And, I leaned into that my entire career, right? And not knowing that. And so when I started teaching at Columbia, they gave me a chance to go through what they call pedagogical studies. And I ended up learning about a lot of the theory behind pedagogy, pedagogical thinking, and how do you create learning experiences for adults. That ended up becoming something that I use as a CHRO as I think about learning and development. As I was writing a book, I um, took a writing workshop with a community school near me where I had to write little, like, not fictional narratives and then get critiqued by all the retirees that were in the class who clearly had way more time than I did. But I took it because I said, I don't know how to write in a way that's interesting to people, right? I can write you an amazing slide deck to a board, right? But I don't know how to write from the standpoint that would be something that's a narrative or interesting. And so I took a writing workshop on that. And I say all that because there are things that no employer of mine would have said, hey, go find a writing workshop, or hey, go learn about pedagogical theory, right? Or you should go get an accounting background, right? But they're all things that make me better at being me and doing the things that I do. And with that being said, as an organization, I think we need to be much more thoughtful about not pigeonholing people into a particular learning and development program, opportunity to grow, experience, because what makes me better at what I do is not going to check a box of what that career path would necessarily look like and what you learn to go down that career path. And so we just need to be open to people really exploring things in many different directions because it will come back to support what they're doing in ways that we probably couldn't even guess, but it will be there because it just broader knowledge always brings for a better person to come and be able to see patterns and thought processes.
Absolutely. So, what is a word or a phrase that you use to describe the transformation process, and tell us why you've chosen this word or phrase?
So a word or phrase that I'm gonna lean into, I'm still leaning into stacking. And I say that because we're living in a time where none of us have an idea. I mean, you could read five articles today and they'll all tell you it looks five different things in 2 years from now, right? So we're living in a time where we have no idea what's going to happen. We have some educated guesses, but we're still living in this unknown. And with that being said, as organizations and as people, the currency or the value that we're all going to bring is our ability to stack skills in a way that we can rebuild and redeploy on a regular basis. And I think that's where success will come in this. My ability to stack my skills and be able to redeploy it where I need it in my positions or going out and embarking on something else is important. And as organizations, my ability to stack skills inside my organizations to kind of keep moving and adjusting the puzzle pieces as I need to will be what make me successful at the end of the day.
Well said. What would you like our audience to remember about our conversation today?
Don't be afraid to add more skills. Don't be afraid to add more skills. Explore, do new things, and expect the same thing of your own talent. When you're in a time of change, you can't close the door on opportunities to explore and do new things because sometimes those things come back and are actually the things that make you better and more valuable in the future, and you just don't know it yet.
Well, this has been such a treat, Angela. We've talked similar languages, so I just really loved our conversation today. And, some of the things that I pulled out besides the skill stacking and your broader framework around that was around, you know, not giving ourselves enough credit because we're humans and we have emotions and you're like, I don't know. But I think what you're saying is let go of that and just make a list without any emotion, without any judgment. Just make a list and think through using your framework how to frame those skills. And speaking about framing, I think what you've also taught us today is really to think more holistically and to recognize that we don't have all the answers and that it's okay to make mistakes and have a culture that embraces learning in this way and that transparency seems to promote better organizations from what you've been sharing. So thank you for that. I'd like our guests or our audience to be able to find you. So you can find Angela via LinkedIn at A Blum Finlay. So it's ABLUMFINLAY. You can read more about her work through her website, windwardhcm.com. So that's WINDWARDHCM.com. And if you've liked what we've talked about and want to go deeper, please get her book, Skill Stacking, Taking Ownership of Your Career in Changing Times. Google that and you'll find a way to go out and get the book. And so, if you would like to find out more information about Portly AI and Squad Talk, please visit portly.ai. That's PORTLY.ai. And as we say here in the squad spirit, keep growing and evolving and leading the way. Thanks again, Angela.
Thank you.